2, 1. Hello and welcome everyone. My name's Barbara and I'm the General Manager here at Garage Saltrell. Before we begin, I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So a massive welcome, warm welcome to you all for joining us for today's session, Good Neighbours Change the World. We're really delighted to have lots of people tuning in from all across Australia, and we have 3 fantastic people to tell you their stories about connectedness and neighbourliness. For those of you who don't know who we are and are new to Garage Saltrell, we're a not-for-profit social enterprise. We started 13 years ago, and our mission is all about connecting communities and stopping good stuff going to landfill. Most people know us for organising a giant festival of garage sales all around Australia. And that event sees hundreds of thousands of people shopping and selling at garage sales over 2 weekends in November. So it's just 2 weeks' time. So this time in 2 weeks, we'll be kicking off a big weekend of garage sales on the 11th, 12th and 18th and 19th of November. And it's not just households rolling up their roller doors, it's also schools, community groups, unit blocks, you name it, selling their pre-loved wares. But today, however, is all about the trail tutorials. And the trail tutorials are our series of free talks that are all about topics really close to our hearts here at Garage Saltrell. And they've been curated for us by the fantastic Jo Taranto, who you're going to meet shortly, and is your host with the most for today's session. It's all made possible and in fact all made free for people to be part of, thanks to the support of an incredible bunch of partners, both local government, state government, private sector and community group partners around Australia, and of course all the incredible people like you who get involved at our events. So let's look to today's session. Today is all about community and connectedness. It's something that we're very passionate about here at Garage Saltrell, because every year we see at least 300,000 Australians joining together to be part of the big weekends of garage sales. It's really a people-powered movement that not only saves millions of kilograms from landfill, but also connects neighbours right across Australia. And it's really interesting when we dig into some of the data around Garage Saltrell. We do a big survey at the end of the event every year. And every year we learn no one is signing up to meet their neighbours. But the reason why they love it and they want to do it again is because they made these new connections with people that live next door to them. Connections that they might not have made if they hadn't had that opportunity to break the ice at a garage sale. So today, we're joined by 3 people who know a thing or two about the power of community. And I'm going to pass you over to Jo, who's our host, who's going to share with you a bit more information about our fantastic panelists. Jo is a sustainability educator and speaker. She co-founded the social enterprise Good for the Hood, which is an incredible organisation with a mission to create more connected and sustainable communities. And you may well recognise her from shows like The War on Waste, as well as Channel 10's Planet Shapers. So Jo, why don't you kick us off by telling us why you're passionate about neighbours?
Thanks so much, Barbara. Yeah, it's a really weird thing to be passionate about because neighbours, love them or hate them, we all have them. And I actually grew up in rural New South Wales, and my nearest neighbour was kilometres away. And so for me to think that when I moved to the city that neighbours were suddenly really important was this kind of moment, because most people and a lot of the ABC have done a whole bunch of research about this. People in the country are more likely to know their neighbours, even though their neighbours are hills and hills away. And the older you are, the more likely you are to know your neighbour by name. So at the age of 25, when I moved to inner city Melbourne and I bought my first little house and I was jammed up side by side with other people, it kind of weirded me out that I didn't know their names and that these people weren't interested in my business and that they were quite happy to go off to work and not even know who I was. And over my, last 20 years, as I've lived in metropolitan places, those feelings of needing neighbours have become really obvious to me on a very personal level. So, what better way than to create a business that talks about community? Because I think at a very deep level, I really want to know my neighbours and I want my neighbours to know me. And it's all those big moments in your life when you don't think you need them, but, when someone dies or someone's sick, or, in my case, you have a miscarriage or your dog dies or you have a divorce, all those big moments, sometimes neighbours are like the only people who are immediately there for you, even if it's just putting the bins out or dropping a meal over or just even smiling at you on the street. It's kind of make or break stuff in those really critical times. And so as I now work in climate change and sustainability, I'm a big believer that neighbours are more important than ever, because when the shit hits the fan, we need each other and we're very social people. And so that's why I really feel, and I felt that today's session was important, because, we often think, oh yeah, we're all good until things do go wrong. And it's great if we can cultivate those relationships in the good times. And a garage sale is just such a great time. So I just felt like, why not talk about the elephant in the room, which is our wonderful guest. You guys are not my elephants, but you are my elephants. So we're going to talk about social connections. So I'm really excited, Babs. And thank you for letting me kind of hijack and take over today. And I'm really excited to introduce my two fellow, social connection ambassadors, amplifiers, doers, people who've seen it firsthand and share a little bit of their story today. And I've said to them, please be frank and fearless, because that's what this is all about. And I think I love people who are prepared to share a little bit about the moments that have kind of defined what it means to have those special people and those connections. So I'm going to introduce you to Barry du Bois. Many people will know Baz. I feel like we know him anyway, and I'm sure he gets a lot of that, "How you going, mate?" as you walk along the street, which comes from being on our screens each week. And if you haven't caught the living room over the years, you would have certainly still be familiar with Barry's face. Barry's a master builder, I believe, and I don't know if you're still tinkering away, but has been a regular host of the living room and podcasts, and a writer as well. I know he's an incredibly proud dad of twins, and Barry's also been really fearless about his conversations around his health and his ongoing battle with blood cancer. And from that, he's a proud ambassador of Are You OK Day, and also other foundations like the Leukemia Foundation. So I'm really, really grateful for Barry joining us today. How are you, Baz?
Joe, I'm fantastic. It's great to be here. Thanks heaps. I just love the way you summed it up, what it's like to have neighbours at the start of your chat. You said that so beautifully, and I'm thinking, yep, that's exactly how I feel. So I can't wait to see where this conversation goes, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. I'm going to come back to you in a second. I'm going to introduce our other wonderful panelist, and that is Chrissy Flanagan, or as you may know her, the chaotic socialite, which is just the most beautiful personal brand that I've ever heard. I love it. Chrissy sums up all the favorite things that, I believe the world should have, which is color and honesty and slightly flamboyant and erratic kind of realness. Chrissy is a self-confessed and very active community builder in her community, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the place she's built called Chaotic Social, which I'm sad to say I actually haven't visited yet, Chrissy, but I know it's on my to-do list and I will be knocking on your doors very soon. It's an amazing place to meet and connect and learn, but we're going to learn a little bit about what Chrissy's learned from creating a space which is designed to help people meet people. But you've also been in other lives, I believe, a sausage maker, Chrissy. I think you might have worked in political office for a while. You've had a very colourful, literally colourful career, but you are sort of that trademark thrifter and reuser and maker and creator as well, which is why it's so wonderful to have you Thank you so much for being part of today, Chrissy.
It is my pleasure to be here, and if I can inspire anyone to hot glue old stuffed toys to pieces of furniture, then my work here is done.
Yeah, look, we're already wanting to watch the video, and I think it is actually on your socials for anyone who's wanting to recreate Chrissy's look today. Thank you so much. We can't wait to hear more about Chaotic Social and what you're doing there. But I'm going to start with you, Barry. You have had quite a public journey with, I guess, health and ill health at different times. I want to firstly find out how you're going and what it's been like to share the really tough times openly with people and publicly with people, and what you've learned.
Thank you. I'm great. I'm here, so I'm happy. Like you said, I've got my beautiful twins, my beautiful wife. I'm the happiest guy alive. And whilst life has had its ups and downs, or hurdles, as some people put it, every day of your life adds up to the sum you are, and mine's a great number. So I'm super happy with that. I'm trying to think of something that could equal what you said about neighbours and how important it is to have a neighbourhood around you. But I'll probably jump forward a few steps and talk about that time. And now I'll put it out there. I was the precinct convener in my precinct. So I was that guy who organises all the people that come together and talk about development in the area, talk about local politics, talk about what colour the bin should be. We talk about anything. And those meetings, like many neighbourhood meetings, are full of this opinion and that opinion. And my wife said to me once, why do you bother arguing every month about this sort of stuff? I said, because this is our neighbourhood. If someone disagrees with you, that's the person you need to get to know better, so we can understand their side of the argument and therefore improve our community as one. And I can talk about the importance of community all day. But I'm going to jump into something that's sort of interesting. I pride myself on being the guy that knocks on any new neighbour's door. My wife was that lady who makes a cake for a neighbour and all those sorts of things. And I live in a beautiful little leafy street in Bondi Beach. And as many people watching this would remember, in 2017, I announced on the living room that I was going through my second battle with cancer. Even now, to tell you, as happy as I am, brings up raw emotions within inside me. And on that particular night, I just felt the enormity of a larger community, because the whole of Australia was sending me energy. And I promise you, I could feel that. And every day I'm thankful for that energy, because it's one of the reasons I'm still here. But what's equally amazing to me about that is someone came and knocked on my door probably a day or two later. And strangely, I'd never seen this person before in my life. They lived 4 doors away from me in a block of units. And as I said, I'd never, ever seen them. And they saw the show where I announced that, and they said, I've seen you walking around and I never wanted to say hello, but when I saw you share that information with the world, I wanted to reach out and let you know you had a neighbour in me. And for me, that was an incredibly powerful thing. Whether you know them or whether you see them or not, our neighbourhood, our close community is a real support system. It's a sense of bravery. It's a sense of strength. It's a one whole thing made up of a whole bunch of individuals. And I think for me, that was a really special day. I don't see that person that much either. I have to say, we do see him on Garage Sale Trail Day, because Bondi just lives for Garage Sale Trail. There's no doubt about it. But, isn't that powerful that someone just walked down and knocked on my door? They knew where I lived, and they just wanted to let me know that if I need anything from them, I'm there. And they saw that through TV. So that was a wild experience for me. But and cut me off anytime you have to, Joe, because I'll ramble all day. Most people know that. But my dad, we had a couple of rules. It was family first, community second, country then planet. And that was back in the 60s and 70s. And he was adamant about that. It didn't matter if you disagreed with every single thing about your neighbour. We still spoke. We still talked everything through. And as it happens, I grew up in a beautiful neighbourhood, and I love the fact that my beautiful children are growing up in a really protective, beautiful neighbourhood as well, thanks to that communication.
Yeah. Why do you think it takes something to go wrong sometimes, Barry, or something big to happen for us to reach out? And why do you think we maybe don't always invest in those relationships when things are going swimmingly?
Yeah, I don't think invest is the right word, Joe. I think people are sometimes scared. Well, we live in a society where we're getting a lot of messages off a lot of different people at a lot of different times. We get so many messages from people we don't even know anymore. So we learn to turn those messages into a white sound. We just ignore so much of it. And what that does is take away our ability to resolve problems, because we avoid problems. But like that person who is a quiet person, who does live in the back of the units and does keep to themselves, they realised that this was a problem they had to resolve. So I don't think it's an investment. I think some people are just scared. And that's why, as a board member of Are You OK Day, again, we know for someone else's mental health, maybe not yours, but for someone else's mental health, whether they seem sad, happy, or in between, if you say, how are you? Are you doing okay? It can, in some cases, save their life. But at very least, that investment of saying hello to your neighbourhood and to your neighbour, that investment costs you very little. But like you said earlier, you might get back a smile, which is a fantastic dividend from that investment. So, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And it leads really well into you, Chrissy. You obviously saw an opportunity and a need to create a place for people to connect. Can you tell us a bit about Chaotic Social and how it started and how you feel about it now?
Thanks, Stuart. So really it came from a place of Sydney has a reputation that I think is accurate of being virtually the coldest, like the emotionally, socially coldest or hardest to break into city in the world. And I think there's sort of a lot of reasons for that go back to now real estate being so expensive and people living at home. So they're staying in their sort of community, which means communities can be very entrenched, which is wonderful for people who grow up in Sydney. There's a huge proportion of people who live in Sydney who didn't go to high school here, do an undergraduate degree here, and then also if you don't raise children here and you're not in the workforce here, then it can be very hard to become connected to people. And that, I think, is leaving a lot of people feeling socially isolated. And I think it's sort of the last taboo, admitting that you feel a bit lonely and that you would like to make a friend. My experience has been that although the same technology exists for meeting people for friendship as it does for meeting people for dating, people are more comfortable saying that they're looking for people to meet someone romantically than they are for friendship. That it's sort of, there's a cringe factor around it. So I think there's a lot to overcome in terms of creating a space or a format in which people feel comfortable. As Barry said, it's not that they don't want to, it's just that they don't know that it's appropriate. They don't know that it's going to be welcome to approach each other. And I'm personally someone with autism, and I feel much more comfortable in situations where everyone's role is clear. So, we are both in this place to meet new people and potentially make friends. So we will speak to each other and share these activities, and then we'll cross-reference, see if we enjoy each other, and then, potentially form a friendship on that basis. But it's a very vulnerable thing to say to another adult, as I've never heard anyone say in my adult life before I've been at Chaotic Social. For one adult to say to another, would you like to be friends? And I hear that every night now. But it's just overwhelming how new it is.
Yeah. And chaotic social, for anyone who's not familiar, for me, it's like a fever dream of all my favorite things like color, glitter, learning stuff, ridiculous crafts. Is there a reason that you have, I mean, it's obviously part of who you are, but is there something about being in a space that is kind of novel and a little bit, in the best kind of way, silly, and a little bit almost childlike? Does something about that add to does it make it safer for people to connect as an adult?
Absolutely. It's very intentionally vivid. So if anyone hasn't seen the space, it's the inside and the outside, the entire thing's bright orange. And I think to a certain extent, no one feels at home in a bright orange. Like, that's no one's environment. So everyone's sort of equally a little bit discombobulated in a way that can actually work. I've been running sausage making classes for, I think, about 8 years. And a key insight I got out of why people really formed bonds with people they didn't come with, and people didn't come to sausage class to make friends, but it always happened that people left and went to the pub together. And I've focused for years on what is the key insight into why that happens. And it's because no one has a history making sausage. It's a new, quite bizarre experience to everyone. So if you can get a group of strangers in a room and they can all have a new, slightly discombobulating experience, then that kind of brings them together as a group. And I don't know if they like cling to each other going, why is it so orange in here? I don't understand, but it works.
I love that. There's something about that experience. You know that if you get stuck in a line for an extended period, or if something weird happens in a room and outside the window and you're all looking and you don't know those people, it kind of forces you together, doesn't it? So maybe that's what you're doing. It's like an experience that makes people feel awkward and close at the same time. I love that. So Barry, we know you've said yourself, it's quite scary to go and meet people and to make that step. Are there things that we can do either as the person who's stepping into that role or the person who's receiving that, that can make that easier? And have there been times where you have done that and you've gone, this is awkward, but I'm going to do it and I'm just going to see what happens?
Let me first say, I love awkward. Awkward is one of my favorite things because I love pushing myself. But let's just wind back a little bit first. Garage sale trail, community, all these things, we don't have to make friends with everybody we talk to. Take the pressure off yourself. Like I said, I've got, I said last night at a party, I've got enough friends. I don't really need any more friends, but I'm always open to another interesting discussion. So don't put the pressure on yourself that if I reach out to someone and then they don't want to be friends with me, that's going to be a failure. No, just reach out saying, I wonder, have you got something interesting to tell me? You know, and that's how I would start that question is, you know, what have you been up to lately? That must be amazing. I love to start my conversations with questions, just because I like to hear. And one of my old mentors told me this, and when I was learning to sail, which I've done a lot since then, he said, I won't use the expletives that he put into it, but he said, if you listen, you know what you know and what they know. And that's probably twice as much in my case. Well, he was indicating that I didn't know anything, and if I didn't know twice as much. But what I want to get at is you don't have to make best friends. We don't have to have relationships. I always say this with my interior design. The front door, the entry to your home, this is a place where you meet people for the first time in your life that could be in your life for the rest of your life or the next 5 minutes. So make that a fun time. If it's 5 minutes, make it the best 5 minutes you've ever had. If it ends up turning into a lifetime, it's more than a fad, it's a culture. So that's a fantastic thing. But take the pressure off. But ask the question, listen, engage, and let them know you're hearing it. And ask if you want, hey, I really enjoyed this. I'd like to follow this up with you down the track. I mean, that's the theme we use at Are You OK Day. And as a nation, as a people, that's a great place to start. Can I jump into something else for you that I think is unique to Australia? One of my passions is urban architecture. Urban architecture creates society. The way the built environment guides humans has a huge effect on us. And if anybody that's traveled to Europe or a lot of Asia or the Middle East or anywhere in the world, there's always a central piazza, okay? And the city is built around the central piazza, and people have to use the central piazza to get their bread and their meat and their candlesticks. And that's where conversation happens. That's where debate happens. That's where societies develop. And then we take that back to our homes. In Australia, we've been developed around the motor car. So we have the urban sprawl and suburbs, and we don't have a central piazza. So we need to, as a species, as a race, we need to realise, and this is what I think Garage Sail Trail does so beautifully, our central piazza is our neighbourhood, our street, our footpath is our central piazza. So when we want to spend more time out there and just enjoying the intersection of people, because if they're walking past your place, they're in your life. You may as well ask them if they're doing okay.
How do people with apartments and sort of maybe less, centralized places to meet kind of make that a little bit easier, Barry? Any thoughts?
Well, a great little one we've done. I'm in Bondi. It's one of the most highly densely populated places, a huge transient population as well, which I just love, okay? People always say, oh, it's all full of backpackers. I think backpackers are great. There's so many interesting stories. So one thing we did, and it was championed by the lady next door to me in the block of units, we created a little community garden. I put up a sign, we created an Instagram page, and I said, join this if you're interested. We're going to do a working bee. We're going to plan it out. I'll fund it. I said I'd fund it. I had the ability to do that, so I did. But since then, we've added in a native beehive. We have harvest days. And I've been, my children are 11 now, and weekend sport's a big part of my life. So that's a whole new group of people I associate with and talk to. But I'll come home and be so proud to see that there's 10 or 12 people around this community garden weeding and putting in their little seeds and talking to each other. And then Jody will introduce me to the new couple that moved in three doors down. That's one way. But the best way, by far, is smiling at people. If you smile, eventually they'll say hello.
Yeah, it's something I honestly forget to do sometimes, and it's just shameful to say because
we're normally like this. That's why.
Well, there's that too. I actually got my son to film me while I was walking to the car the other day, because content creation is.
It's because if you didn't film it and put it on Instagram, you didn't really go to the car.
Pretty much, Barry. It was proof of life for my amazing 4 followers. Yeah, and it was exactly the look on my face was kind of like I was like, wow, I look like I'm in pain because I was rounding up children and pushing dogs back inside. If a neighbour had come past at the moment, they would have gone, oh, she definitely does not want me to talk to her. I'll leave her alone. So I definitely think there's something about that whole, totally. I'm open. Yeah. Smile at me. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about the people turn up, Chrissy, to your wonderful space? They're a little bit maybe discombobulated, as you said. How do you enable connection in a space where, maybe it's not about necessarily making friends, as Barry said, but you're really wanting at least people side by side having a chance to connect? And can you tell us about this great thing you've been doing called speed mating?
Yeah, so one key insight, again, I worked out at sausage class, is once people have just heard each other's name and said hello, you can't go back to pretending that people just don't exist. It's as basic as just doing a whip round. It's naff, but I don't apologize for anything that I do being naff. But at the start of every class, everyone's wearing a name tag, and I encourage pronouns and then 3 key interests. So I'll have like craft, dogs, and politics, things like that. And so that people can easily go, oh, it's like a little conversation starter, and then at the start we'll play a couple of games, some competitive rock paper scissors, because again, anything that's playful is something we don't have a lot of fun as adults, and we certainly don't make time for that, just light-hearted things that aren't results driven. So doing something like that, and then doing a bit of an earnest whip round where everyone says their name and then a topic I choose for the day. So it can be as trite as the highlight of my week, or what I'm looking forward to, or what was my favorite activity sort of during lockdown, something like that. And just even with that little bit of information, it's enough of a bond that it opens the door, the social door, to just looking over during a session and having that little bit of a connection. If people all just kind of file in, it's all just between them and me and back and forth, but I'm not involving them with each other, things just don't develop in the same way. It's a huge difference. So those are definitely things that can be, say in a garage sale context, I would encourage thinking about just, a name tag and some interest if people wanted to put that on, because it's just it creates an atmosphere where that feels more safe too. If you see someone else browsing, they're in the records section as well, and you like records as well, and they like music and you like music, you go, oh, hey Dan, oh, I see you're looking at the UMI, I went to one of their concerts. It's like a little spark. I think there's a level of desire to make connections, to just have those pleasant interactions, even if it's in a vacuum. But a lot of us enjoy just having that sort of permission that it's okay, that there's a warmth and a welcomeness, and that it's appropriate. So you can give little signs to say it is.
I love that. It is about those little moments, like what's expected and is okay. It's like permission to be not the weirdo who's saying, who's doing something that's out of because we are such social beings, aren't we? We're really looking for cues all the time about what expectations are, as sad as that can be. So in the interest of, it is very hard on a webinar to create connection, but I'm really keen to give it a go. I would love people to throw their 3 words. I'm going to get Barbara to start, because she's just such a champion of being. So throw your 3 words in the chat, guys. We'll never see these people again, probably, or maybe you will at your garage sale trail. And I'm going to ask Barry and Chrissy what their 3 words would be. And if I had to introduce myself with 3 words, it would be coffee, climate, because I work in that space, and country, because you can take the girl out of the country, but I've tried so hard and the country will never come out of me. It is just in me, and I can turn it on really, really easily, guys. So yeah, if you need me to do that. So it's just part of who I am, and I feel that really strongly. So secondhand dancing and food, excellent. I want to see them all in there, everyone. Your permission, your social cue is there, so this is what we expect. So Barry, I'm going to get your 3 words in a second and come back to you, Chrissy. I want to know a time that you have really let yourself enter a new community, and what it's been like for you to do that, and how you're finding that is helping you as, adult Barry in new communities. And your 3 words, please.
It's a difficult question for me, because community is a big thing for me. I've always been a part of it. And I do want to touch on this one just before we go on back to Garage Sale Trail. I remember my most memorable Garage Sale Trail was when I had my babies. They were 6 months old, proudly walking around the streets and desperate to buy something for them. And there was this giant Barbie. Arabella and Bennett was 6 months old, so they were way off this stuff. But this giant Barbie car, it's like is it a camper van car that Barbie has? I'm not huge on Barbie, but it's this big camper van. And the lady was so amazing. She lived in my neighborhood, not my street, but my neighborhood. And she says, Well, it's not long. They're going to be, these two are going to be going to Bondi Public. You're going to love that school. So we started the conversation because of the children. And I was looking at a Barbie thing, but she was telling me the headmaster's name and talking about the drop-offs and stuff like that. And I remember that conversation when they started at school, because the headmaster was the same guy. It was Michael Jones, and the way the drop-off worked and the way that the little year 5 kids were their buddies for the, I was so excited about that day coming. And when it came, effectively 4 or 5 years later, I remembered that conversation. And that woman had moved on. She had moved on because the reason she was having the garage sale trial is because they were moving. So they were getting rid of a lot of stuff. But yeah, I've forgotten your question now because I wanted to tell that story. Such a crack.
Yes, your 3 words as well to describe yourself if you were at if you're at Chrissy's sausage making class.
Yeah, love, curiosity, and confidence.
Amazing. We've had some great ones. We've got lots of people into making amazing things and cooking, crafting, hiking, veg gardening, repurposing textiles. We had someone else growing food, secondhand, of course. That's a big one for everyone. Chrissy, what's your 3 words? When do you introduce yourself?
Craft, dogs, and politics. So broad, but yeah.
All of them. Amazing.
That's fun, isn't it? I mean, you can see that Chrissy's range is huge. I mean, if you don't want to talk about dogs, you can jump into politics. If you want to talk about dogs, I love that. You're going to hit 1 out of the 3, aren't you?
It's true. I've often heard about that strings of conversation, that if you give people enough strings, they can grab onto one, even if the rest are like, oh, politics, oh, craft. Let me talk about you. So I love that. Barry, what's it like as, a middle-aged man entering a new community? You've joined a basketball team recently. Was that a new thing? I
love that you call me a middle-aged man. That's fantastic. I'm 63 years old. So it's,
wow. Okay. No, that's, wow. You're still middle-aged, mate. It's all right.
I'll tell you how it is. It's no secret. I live with blood cancer. It's an incurable cancer. I have 11-year-old twins. And I'm probably not going to be around for their 21st. So, if I make that, it'd be a miracle, quite frankly. And I'll be a very happy guy, and I hope I do, and I want to. So the strength of my community, therefore their community, is incredibly important to me. I'm interested in politics because politics, I believe that the culture of the country comes from the politics of the country. I'm not overly fussed with the politics of this country, the culture of the country in the last 10 years. So I work with what I used to try and change the world. I was that guy who wanted to change the whole world, and I'm a big, strong guy, and I'm a confident guy and a man of means. And I thought, I'm going to change the world. But I've realized it's hard to change the world, but what you can do is you can put a grain of sand, your grain of sand, in front of the wheel that is rolling through history, and you can sort of give it a little direction. So yeah, I'm part of precinct groups. When I was a master builder, I was in the Master Builders Association. I love the surf clubs. I love sporting clubs. Now, for me, I'm 63. I like to think that I'm still a youngish 63, but I had another health scare only about 18 weeks ago. And it was a scary thing that I haven't made public, but I just did. And it was only a scare. I'm fine. It's not worse than it was. But I said to myself, you know what? If I don't start moving, I'm going to turn into an old person, and my time with the children will be cut even shorter, because movement means the oxygenation of the blood. The oxygenation of the blood means a healthy immune system. A healthy immune system extends your life. Then we go to the neuro part of it. If we're talking to people, if we're showing our curiosity, if we're asking questions, if we're arguing points, we're keeping our mind sharp as well. So I just said to the boys, I'm inspired by my son, who's 11 years old, playing basketball. I can't play footy anymore. I used to be a boxer. I'm not going to go punching people in the head anymore. I definitely can't get punched in the head anymore. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to find a club where I can ask a couple of dads that I don't really know that well. They're my son's mates' dads. Said, you guys watch your boys. Do you want to play basketball? And I'm very proud of our little team who's only won one game. But we are just loving the camaraderie. I've got two architects, I've got builders, laborers. We've got a whole facet of different people. And all it cost us was $150 to join a club. And I hate WhatsApp groups, I have to tell you. And I know if you've got kids, you've got a dozen of them. But my WhatsApp group for the basketball, the Bondi Hoop Troop, it's just my favorite place at the moment because we're all inspiring each other. And you know what I said to the team? I'll share this with you quickly. I started playing 7 weeks ago. I lasted, and everybody should listen to this. I like to think I'm a fit guy. I lasted 2.5 minutes on the court and I had to get off. I was exhausted. Okay. Now on Thursday night, one of our guys got fouled out. We had no reserves. I played the whole game. So I'm improving my fitness, got a haircut, so I looked even younger. And then I went to the Paul McCartney concert with 60,000 people all coming together for the love of history and music and to celebrate a man. And to me, that was my community. We're all the same there. We all love one thing. I wish the whole world could act like that at the moment because I think it's horrific what's going on. But, I walked out of there and I texted the boys the next day. And the Uber was going to be 45 minutes. And I'm that guy, I sound like a wanker. I don't even go in anything but a Premier Uber. So that's what a wanker I am. But I jumped on a line bike and rode from Moore Park to my home in Bondi. And I said to the boys, this is because of you guys. You push me every week. I don't know you that well, but you're giving me back some life and I appreciate it.
Wow. I love that. And I guess that gives them permission to share things with you too in a safe place. And in a way that's, reciprocal. It's not like a one-sided relationship. So I feel like there's a reality show in your basketball team, Barry, but we'll wait and see. It's the kind of reality show I'd like to watch as opposed to some
Could easily end up in the cardiac ward though, I'm afraid, but we'll see what happens.
What a show. I mean, what a narrative arc that would be.
If nothing else rates that, will. Clear. Boom. Boom.
Chrissy, you've touched on a couple of little tips, and I'm going to open it up for questions now as we sort of head into the last sort of 15 minutes. So we're thinking very specifically about creating a place, and Barry's touched on the places to meet are really critical for community, and you've mentioned that places that are fun and novel are really great for creating connections, particularly for the first time. You're holding a garage sale. What sort of things are you thinking about as you curate that, as you think about where people arrive, what they see, how they move around the space, how they interact with you? Are there things that you think about as a community builder which you go, hang on, I need something? Like, is it that you think about the signage or the conversations, or is it, for you, is it much more about the fluidity of it and just going in with an open mind? Is there any tips you can give people who are on that space for them?
Well, firstly, being the inner west, a lot of people don't have their own garages. I in fact live in a garage, so I'm in my garage rather than being able to have a garage sale in it. So I'm getting together. I've done an open call for people who want to go in with me on having the garage sale at Chaotic Social, purely because then it's more of a community experience, but also a lot of us just don't have access to that sort of space, and access to spaces critical to participation, but then there's also, we'll all be bringing our own communities with us, so then there's already a built-in intermingling of groups of people that you don't necessarily know, but with common elements. So my garage sale is going to be clothes and craft supplies, because those are kind of two things I'm particularly interested in. I just every day virtually make a new outfit, and so no one can actually wear that many clothes. So as I make them, they cycle through, and then I sell them on to the next person. So that's a lot of what I'm selling, but then also because I cycle through crafts, and this is also, a lot of us enjoy trying new skills. Many people are in the same position where we have different craft things. So I'm thinking of things like interactive things, so that while people are in the space, they can also be having an activity that can be grouply worked on. So I have and this was actually recommended to me by a preschool teacher, and she said the 4-year-olds love it. I have basically some like chicken wire on a frame, and then just strips of fabric that people can tear off and just kind of weave through the chicken wire however they like, and that can be accessed through both sides. And so it'll become in the end a piece of art that I can then put up on the wall. And it's been something, I love things that are worked on by a large group of people and happen incrementally, and I love seeing the work. Back when I had a restaurant, this was obviously pre-pandemic, I had communal knitting. So there was like a scarf that people could just come in and do a couple of rows and then put it back in the basket, and it was terrible looking, but that wasn't the point. So things like that, I guess. If there are particular themes that you're having a garage sale around, I think it's wonderful to lean into highlighting those sorts of themes in some sort of interactive way. So maybe if you were selling a lot of cookbooks, you could have some of them open to a display of like, this is my favorite recipe in that book. Or maybe a barbecue and that sort of thing. So I think you're really only limited by your imagination. And I think it's also just about not just telling your community, but also telling your existing network and your existing friends, because there are probably people in your life who would love to just like stop in to your garage and say hi and just catch up, but they're not going to kind of call you and go, hey, do you want to have a beer? But if people might feel a lot more comfortable just like popping in for that quick low-key sort of catch up. That's certainly something I've experienced. I have a lot of old friends just sign up for a class and come in, and that's a lovely way of catching up as well. And I think the garage sales are fantastic sort of premise to rekindle some of those relationships.
And it's like you said before, Barry, people are very busy, it's very noisy, and it's sometimes about almost like your basketball. This is the time of the week when this happens, and I go here with this intention. And I guess a garage sale is exactly that. It's like, it's happening at 2, I'll be there, or in your case, 9 o'clock, 9 a.m. on Saturday the 11th, Chrissy. And it makes us kind of commit, or at least put it in there as a thing.
It gives us an excuse to commit. It gives us an excuse to say hello. A couple of other tips. My wife's an amazing cook. She'll always make biscuits or brownies that you just give away. And we haven't had our own sale for a while, but we always take stuff to other people's sales. And last year, I think, or the year before, I can't remember, the kids had a lemonade stand there. So there's that. But the dog bowl is already, especially if you don't have a dog, get something so that the dog can have some water, because people with dogs are out walking generally because they want to talk to people. And if you've got that neighbor, which we've got a couple of them, who's got the dog and there's water there for the dog and a biscuit, they'll talk to 3 people at your stall, if just because they just love chatting. There's always those people who just love chatting as well. And don't be scared to jump into those conversations those days. It's I always say, don't be. I've never been scared of anything in my life, but and a difficult conversation to me is my next great conversation.
I love that. Any tips for people who maybe find initiating that first conversation, particularly if you consider yourself a bit of an introvert and you're not someone who would maybe go, oh yeah, I'm really great. I know some of us find it maybe a little easier than others, depending on any tips if you feel really anxious about
Can I jump on this, Chrissy?
Yeah, Barry, go for it.
Listen, I'll say it to you. If you're listening, I'm going to say it to you directly. Take the pressure off yourself here. Take a big breath and give yourself the opportunity to let your imagination work in a positive way. We so often allow our imagination to work in a negative way. Don't manifest a negative thought. Think about what a great thing that could come just by simply saying hello. There is so much to gain and literally nothing to lose. I talk within the groups that I train the limiting emotion of fear. And I'm always saying to people, fear is a very important emotion. If you're crossing a highway or you're on the edge of a building or in a jungle with lions and tigers around you, fear is a great thing to have. But don't allow it to limit the challenges that you can take on. Because when you take on what to me is a simple challenge, to you it may be a really difficult challenge to reach out and say hello. If you allow yourself to just say hello and not use your imagination in a bad way that something could happen badly, well, that's the start of think about the first conversation you had with your best friend. It wasn't that easy. It was probably an awkward conversation. Don't expect too much. Take the pressure off yourself and don't use your imagination in a negative way, because fear is just your imagination. Unless it's right, a dangerous thing happening to you, using fear as a limiting emotion against the challenge of starting a conversation is a poor use of your imagination.
It's amazing how we jump to the worst case scenario, isn't it, Barry? Like, we're like, oh, what if they, and I don't ever remember a situation where I've said hello to someone and then, they've laughed at me or, chastised me or, it's
if
never
someone laughed at me, I'd be excited because I finally said something funny. I'm always trying so hard.
Right.
Finally, I cracked one.
Be a good outcome.
Yeah.
We've got some amazing tips there. Smiling at people, building a place where people actually want to stick around, and there's a lot to be said for that, whether that's food, drink, barbecue, dog bowls, biscuits, signs, something to do. There's something about the power of people already being there and you walk past, it takes away that stress, doesn't it? If you can see, it's like a restaurant that's full versus a restaurant that's got one person or no people in it. You know which one you'll tend to choose. So yeah, maybe a rent a crowd if you need to have a few people browsing. It takes the pressure off that one person who really wants to join who can't. I'm a big believer in food and drink, and I think that really helps people want to stick around. There was a question there for tips on when you're moving to a new place, and I might contribute a little bit. I've moved a lot in my 43 years, John. Lots of communities, regional, rural, and city. And I guess I find it harder now than I ever have as, a mum of 2 kids. And even though I'm really busy, I work for myself. And I think it's actually that one of those windows that Chrissy talks about. Like, I've stopped those key moments. So I actually have to go into it with a sort of the attitude that Barry said, like really curious and seeking out connections. And one of the things that I've done is found some things that align with my passions and interests. And I joined an activity which most 40-year-olds don't do, which is bush care. And I can tell you not many people do bush care at my age. So I spend a lot of time with older people, but I managed to rope a couple of my neighbours into it. And that's been something that, because I just love being outside. It's kind of a throwback to my days on the farm, and I can go and plant some trees and maybe see a snake, which is a bit of a thrill for me. Not everyone's cup of tea, I acknowledge, but so I would say find the things that light you up, whether it's basketball, sailing, making sausages, going and sitting in the park, and try and join an organized activity. Would you say, Barry, that's a good advice? Like, schedule that time in, and so that you don't sort of say, oh, maybe one day I'll do it. It's like, it's happening on Tuesday at 8 o'clock.
The things that take a long time, like growing food, are the best things, because we're not going to get a cucumber in the first day. We're going to put 3 seeds in a hole, cover it over and water it. If you take out a cup of tea, say, let's meet for a cup of tea when this thing sprigs, and then harvesting the first time. That's a 3-month procedure. You've had a 3-month relationship thanks to one cucumber, and it's a great thing. It doesn't really matter who eats it, but yeah.
I love that. And community gardens are a great one. And Barry's done it in his own space, but absolutely have a look at Community Gardens Australia. And they have community gardens all over Australia that you can free to go and be part of. And like Barry said, it's like a bit of an investment in not only a friendship, but potentially a cucumber that might need a little bit of love for that time. And Meetup is also great. Yes, wonderful advice there, Sharon. So we're going to throw back to Barbara in a second, but last tips from you, Chrissy, and then Barry. We've got these garage sales coming up. We've got people who are interested in maybe, not taking the pressure off, not necessarily having to make the best friends of their life, but maybe creating a new connection. Final tips from you, Chrissy.
Oh, I think it's like telling people. You can't tell enough people, and I think the vomit principle applies always to communication. If you don't feel like you're going to vomit when you say it, then you haven't said it enough. Just keep posting about it. And also be sort of specific, because it's one thing to go, I'm having a garage sale, but if you go, oh, and I'm going to have this dress here and this vase, but like actually hook people so that they know what your specific sort of taste is, what they could be getting interested in. And then, I think take those little opportunities to sneak a little human connection when you get it.
And from you, Barry?
Yeah, don't manifest negative thoughts. Use your imagination in a positive way. Imagine that this could be the start of one of the most wonderful conversations you're ever going to have in your life.
No pressure. I love it. It's actually really beautiful.
Just imagine it can work out.
I love it. So excited. And we have had a request, maybe just at the end, to have a look at Chrissy's couch. Is it a couch or is it a bed head, Chrissy?
I should say it's a bed head. My elderly dog is here, who's got a lot of dog dementia, so that's why. Excuse me for being on my bed. But yes, this is the bed as modeled by the dog, and that's my vintage wall mirror. So virtually everything you can see has been hot glued because someone donated a lot of beads to me as well. So I've just wallpapered this mirror in hot glue. Anyway, so it's amazing. The whole thing is wallpapered. So as far as the eye can see, there's wallpaper and quilts and candles.
Slow down. This is too much fun. Slow down. I love it.
I feel like I live in the most boring house in the world right now. Hey, Babs, what are your thoughts? Are you feeling inspired?
Oh, so inspired. It's been the most incredible session listening to you guys chatting about community and just the greatest tips, because they're all so simple, just really fantastic. Just smile, just say hello. They're all simple things that we can all go away and do. And it was really inspiring hearing from all three of you. So massive thank you to all of you for joining us. We'll have to make sure lots more people get the chance to watch the recording, which will be on its way to all of you in the next hour or so. So massive thank you to you, Barry, to you, Joe, and to you, Chrissy. Really fantastic.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Before you all disappear off to go and meet your neighbours, just a quick, so the recording will be with you shortly, so we'd really encourage you to share that far and wide, let people know you attended and get them across the fantastic tips and stories that we heard today. We'd also love to hear your feedback, so if you've got a phone handy, you can scan that QR code on the screen now to give us a little bit of feedback. There's only about 5 questions. It'll take you less than the time it takes to boil a kettle for a cuppa. And it will really help us to know how do we program these events next year and make sure we're providing good feedback to our fantastic panelists. And of course, get along to Chrissy's garage sale. It's going to be incredible. But there's also about 8,000 garage sales already registered across Australia this November. So get online to garagesaletrail.com.au and go and flex your new neighbourliness muscle. over the Garage Sale Trail weekends. You can host a sale still, so you can still register to host your own garage sale and be inspired by the great tips today. Loved that one from Chrissy around the vomit principle. That is just a killer tip. So yeah, sell or shop, join us for the Garage Sale Trail, which is coming up in just 2 weeks' time. So a massive thank you to all of you on the line for joining us. A massive thank you to our incredible panelists. It was a really, really fabulous session, and incredibly generous of you all to give up your Sunday to join us. So a huge thank you. Have a lovely afternoon and evening, everyone. We'll speak to you soon.
Take care.
Everyone.
Bye, everyone.